ArcGIS Desktop at version 10 comes with a lot simpler editing interface that gives you a much easier access to the tools. So the goal of this training seminar is to get you started with this new editing environment and introduce you to some new streamlined editing workflows which make editing more intuitive and also will help you edit your data more efficiently. Let's get started and talk about the ArcGIS 10 editing environment. One of the key enhancements of editing in ArcGIS 10 is that it's now layer-based. The editing functionality honors any settings that you make in the layer properties, as opposed to previous versions where the editing functionality was mostly based on the feature class properties that you've set in the underlying data. In ArcGIS 10, you now select the type of features that you want to create from a list of available feature types. And that list is created based on the layer symbology. So for example, when you set unique symbol symbology in the layer properties, the list of available feature types is created based on each unique symbol. The available types of features, that's what we call the feature templates. And we're going to talk about feature templates quite extensively during this presentation. Feature templates define the type of features that you create. So rather than selecting a construction tool, an editor task, and a target layer, we just select the feature template. And feature templates, they even come with a default construction tool that we may or may not want to use. We can switch to a different one if we like to. But then we're ready to start digitizing new features in our map. The most commonly used editing functionality is more directly available on the editor toolbar now. Lots of the commands were somewhat hidden, that were hidden in task menu, in the context menu, or in shortcuts, are now more exposed directly as buttons on the editor toolbar. And we also have new mini toolbars with additional tools that you can use during your edit sketch. The mini toolbars, they appear right when you need them. So rather than hunting around the interface to search for new tools, you can just use the tools from those mini toolbars. That, of course, minimizes the amount of button clicks that you have to do and makes your editing more efficient. In ArcGIS 10, we also have a new and simplified snapping environment. When snapping is turned on, your mouse pointer will jump or snap to any edges, vertices, or other features when your pointer is within a certain snapping tolerance. Snapping in ArcGIS 10 has been streamlined in a way that it is enabled by default. Now, you can't forget about it anymore. It's available inside and outside of an edit session, and it's available it applies to all layers in the map. This saves you a lot of time managing the snapping environment on a layer-by-layer basis. We also have a new snapping toolbar that I'm going to show you in the software demonstration. These are only a few highlights of the new editing environment in ArcGIS 10. There would be much more to talk about, but without further ado, let's move on to our first software demonstration about creating new features and how to use the new editing environment in ArcGIS 10. So I'm going to switch over to ArcMap, where you see the map shows an area in the Sierra Nevada mountains in Southern California. We're in Sequoia National Park, where wildfires play an integral part of the ecosystem. They are natural in this ecosystem, and GIS is heavily used for wildfire management. So let's imagine we're the ones responsible for capturing that wildfire information. And you see here in the table of contents, I have several wildfire-related layers. I have annotation, wildfire points, response lines, and also some perimeter polygon layers. As well, I have a base map from ArcGIS Online for a really good and proper background. So let's zoom to an area where a wildfire has just been detected. And I'm going to start an edit session now to populate all these layers here. Right now, they are just empty layers, and I don't have any features in them right now. So here's our new editor toolbar. It may look a little bit familiar to you. We still have an editor menu where I could start editing, but there's no task and no target drop-down menu anymore. So you might wonder, how am I going to create my new features? Okay, so we will see that in a minute. Instead of starting editing from here, I just want to show you a different way to do that. I will right-click any of the layers in the table of contents, go to Edit Features, and start editing. This will start an edit session for the entire workspace that contains that layer. You might have noticed as soon as I started editing, the new Create Features dialog shows up here. The Create Features dialog shows me all the types of features that I can create, and these are my feature templates. So you see, from the unique symbology, from the table of contents, I get all the different feature templates for the different types of wildfire features. At the top of the Create Features dialog, I have different display options, especially with a lot of features like feature templates like these ones here. You might want to filter them in various ways. Maybe I only want to see my polygon feature templates, or maybe you want to group them in different ways, maybe by the frequency, how often you use them. And also notice there's a search field here where I can search for feature templates within this Create Features dialog. Also, watch what happens if I activate any of these feature templates. Down in the Construction Tools area, I get a list of available construction tools for this type of feature template. So for the wildfire point feature here for the fire origin, the point tool is my default tool, but I could switch to another construction tool here as well. Okay, let's put some wildfire points on the map. Let's say the fire origin has been detected in this area here. I just click the map and place my point feature. The fire hotspot, let's say it has been pinpointed a little bit further down, a little bit further south of the fire origin. And I'm also going to put an incident command post here at the end of the street and a first aid station right next to it. So you see, it's very easy to quickly put features on the map with these feature templates. All you need to do really is switch feature templates, and if you go with the default tool, you can just keep digitizing your features. Now watch what happens when I switch over to a feature template of a different geometry type. I'm selecting my intense heat area polygon feature template here. And notice here in the construction area, we get a different set of construction tools available for polygons. And the new freehand tool is the one that is active by default. I'm going to digitize the intense heat area polygon with this new freehand tool. But before I do that, let me show you the properties of such a feature template. To get to the feature template properties, one way to get there is just double-clicking on the feature template. But I also want to show you a different way here using the Organize Feature Templates button at the top of the Create Features dialog. This brings up the Organize Feature Templates window where you get a list of all the layers from the table of contents and all the associated feature templates. Notice at the top here, you also have different display options for them. You can manually create a new feature template if you happen to have added a different layer after you've started editing and all your feature templates have already been created. You can manually create a feature template here. You can copy an existing one and then maybe modify the properties of the copy. Or if you're not working with a feature template anymore, it might be a good idea to delete it as well. But what I want to show you here are the feature template properties. If I go to the properties here, you see a feature template. It comes with a name. That's the name directly from the layer symbology, from the unique symbol symbology. And optionally, I could put in a description here. So let's put in infrared intense heat as a description for these new polygons. You see also I can put in some additional tags. Tags are used for searching and organizing feature templates. You saw earlier we have that search area in the Create Features dialog. The search uses the tags and also the description that you put in here in the template properties. Further down, you see we can set which of the available construction tools you want as a default tool. So right now we leave the freehand tool as a default tool. That's a good one that I want to show you. The drawing symbol, this is directly fetched from the unique symbol symbology from the layer properties as well. And then notice that the target layer has been hard-coded into these template properties. So this is the layer where the new features will be stored. The concept of a target layer has been integrated into these feature templates, and you see it here in the properties. Down at the bottom of the dialog, you see all the attributes that the new features will have. And again, we have different display options here. Especially if you had a lot of attributes, it might be a good idea to sort them alphabetically. And we also have different options how we can view them, whether we want to see the field aliases or the names. And there's also a description for each field at the bottom of the dialog, and we can turn that on or off. But the most important thing I want to show you here for these attribute fields is I can set default attributes right from within the template properties here. The default attribute is an attribute that the new features will automatically inherit, so I don't have to worry about these attributes anymore. So for example, if an attribute will be the same in all the features that I'm going to create, let's say all my intense heat area polygons will be in Sequoia National Park in this region, why don't I put Sequoia National Park as a default attribute? And I don't have to retype it every time I create a new feature. All right, so let's click OK here. Let's close the Organize Feature Templates dialog, and let's digitize a new intense heat area. So with my freehand tool active, I click on the map to start, and now I just hover my mouse pointer over the area that I want to capture. And you see it's very quick and easy. It takes a little bit of concentration though. And then I click to finish the sketch. This is different than with the other tool. I just click once to finish the sketch. So let's imagine this is our intense heat area. To assign some attributes to it, we still have the Attributes button on the Editor toolbar. And you see the Attributes dialog. It's one of these dockable windows. It docks automatically on the side here. I will actually auto-hide my Create Features dialog here just to get a little bit more real estate. And in fact, it's a good idea to do that with the table of contents as well. So back to the Attributes dialog. You see the Attributes dialog has been redesigned a little bit. We have a toolbar at the top now, again with different display options for the attributes. But everything else is pretty much the same. We have the selected feature here showing up in the Attributes dialog. And notice, well, the default attribute has been assigned to the new feature. We don't have to set that one anymore. All I'm going to do is put in a fire name here. And let's say this is the Cascade Fire according to the creek that is nearby. All right. And also for the attributes dialog, it's a good idea to auto hide it on the sidebar here so that I can reuse it later. Okay, so let's clear the selected features. The next thing I want to show you is how to create a line feature. Actually, I'm going to digitize an uncontrolled fire edge response line feature along this eastern boundary of the intense heat area. Let's say the fire, it's spreading in this southeastern direction, and the uncontrolled fire edge runs right on top of the intense heat area polygon. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the trace tool. And notice the trace tool on the editor toolbar. It's right on top of the tool palette, so I'm activating it from here. But before I start my trace, I will also set my snapping environment. You see here's our new snapping toolbar, and you see all the snap agents, all the snap types are on by default. I don't need point snapping, I don't need end snapping, or I don't need vertex snapping, so I'm turning these snapping types off. All I really need for tracing the polygon edge is the edge snapping. Also, I will modify the snapping tolerance. To get to the tolerance, I go to the snapping menu, to the options, and you see here we can type in a different snapping tolerance. At the bottom of the dialog, you see we also have different options for displaying the snap tips. So let's click OK, dark the snapping toolbar again, and now let's trace the uncontrolled fire edge right on top of the polygon boundary. So I click the edge, and you see that activates my snapping, and at this point I can just move my mouse pointer and trace the polygon edge. Notice also that the polygon that I'm tracing, it's not selected. It used to be that we had to select the features that we wanted to trace. We don't have to do that anymore. And also new is that when I right-click, I get to the trace options. For example, you could set an offset here if you didn't want to trace right on top of the polygon edge, but with a certain offset. You could do that here, set that here. And we also have different options to handle corners. But right now I'm just going to cancel out of the trace options here. And by the way, pressing O on the keyboard would give me also this trace options dialog. So what I'm doing here is just trace the uncontrolled fire edge. The fire spreads in the southeastern direction. And when I'm finished, I could just double-click to finish the sketch, or I could press F2 on my keyboard, or a third option would be to use the Finish Sketch button from the Feature Construction toolbar. Unfortunately, you may not be able to see this Feature Construction toolbar right now. It's due to the limitations of our streaming technology, but it would show up if you just single-click, and then you could finish the sketch from there. All right, so here's our new uncontrolled fire edge. If we go to the attributes dialog to assign the attributes to this line feature, there's one thing I want to show you, and that has to do with assigning attributes to date fields. Notice there's a timestamp attribute here, and if I click this timestamp attribute field, it's implemented as a date field. You see I get a calendar command where I can easily pick today's date from this calendar. It actually fetches it from the computer's clock. All right. One last thing I want to show you in this demo before we go back to the presentation part, and that is, what if I wanted to create annotation features in here? In ArcGIS 10, the annotation toolbar has been removed, and the functionality for creating and editing annotation has been integrated into the feature templates. So you notice here at the bottom, I also have feature templates for annotation. So all I really need to do is activate one of these wildfire annotation feature templates. And you see at this point, the annotation construction window shows up. Here I can type in my annotation text. I get different options for formatting the annotation before I would place it. Okay? But let's go back to the presentation part now and recap what we've just talked about. All right, so you've seen me using feature templates for creating new features. Feature templates define all the information that you need to create a new feature. So the target layer where the new feature will be stored, the symbol to draw the new features, and also the default attributes. The default tool that you use to create a new feature, you can set it also in the feature template properties. Feature templates also have a name, a description, and some tags to help you organize them. Feature templates are automatically created from the layer symbology at the beginning of your first edit session. The first edit session in your map document, actually. So if you, for example, have unique symbology in a layer, such as you see here in the wildfire polygons, each symbol will translate directly into a separate feature template. So if you have a new layer in the data frame after you started editing, if you just added a new layer, it's really quick and easy to manually create a new feature template for it. All you need to do is go to the Organize Feature Templates dialog that I showed you and just manually create a new feature template there from the layer properties. Remember, there are also buttons to copy an existing feature template, and then you might want to modify the properties of the copy. Or if you're no longer working with a feature template, you might want to delete it as well to avoid some confusion. All the feature templates in a data frame and everything I set for the feature template properties is stored in the map document. Or if you save out the layer to a layer file, or maybe for sharing, you might want to save it out to a layer package or map package, all the feature template information will be stored in that layer file as well. Another key concept in ArcGIS 10 in the new editing environment is an easier access to the functionality. Lots of the frequently used commands have been exposed as buttons on the editor toolbar. So, for example, the trace construction method is now the default tool from the palette, or the endpoint arc segment tool that you see here, it's a button on the editor toolbar. Also, we have buttons for the edit vertices, the reshape features, and the cut polygon functionality, and I'm going to show you that in the next software demonstration. The new mini toolbars provide functionality right when you need it. So, for example, as soon as you start digitizing new features, the feature construction toolbar shows up with tools that you might want to switch to. Here's a picture of the feature construction toolbar, and I apologize if you weren't able to see it in the previous software demonstration. Due to some limitation in our streaming technology, it might not be encoded in your window that you see from our presentation here. So here's the feature construction toolbar. It shows up as soon as I start digitizing features with a line tool or with a polygon tool, and it gives me other tools that I might want to switch to. So for example, there is the trace that I'm going to show you actually in the next software demonstration. It comes with a whole tool palette. If you click the drop-down menu here, you get all these other tools that you may want to switch to, and it also has buttons for constructing the next segment parallel here or perpendicular to the previous segment. It also has a Finish Sketch button, which can really become handy once you're ready to commit your edits to the database, and also an Undo button, which for obvious reasons is handy as well. The Edit Vertices toolbar is another mini toolbar that appears when you're editing existing features. It actually appears when you go into Edit Vertices mode when you click this button here on the editor toolbar. And you see it has buttons on it, tools to modify sketch vertices, to add or delete sketch vertices, or to finish the sketch or go to the sketch properties. And we're going to see this toolbar in action in the upcoming software demonstration as well. All right, so in summary, our digitizing workflow has been streamlined a lot. Starting an edit session, you can either do it from the editor toolbar, or you can right-click on any layer in the table of contents and start an edit session for the layer and for the entire workspace that contains the layer. You set your snapping environment in one central location, and that's the snapping toolbar. And then you choose a feature template from the Create Features dialogs. Feature templates are created at the moment when you start your edit session, and they also come with a feature construction tool, with a default tool that is active. So you might want to go with a default tool or switch to a different feature construction tool. Then you're ready. Then you're ready to create your new features in the map, assign your attributes, or maybe you might want to set some default attributes in the feature template, so you don't have to set them later on anymore. After you're done, you save your edits as always, and you stop editing. And in the moment when you stop editing and save your edits, that's when your features are committed to the underlying database. Let's move on to our second topic for today, which is editing existing features. Remember earlier on we talked about the new snapping environment and the new snapping toolbar. All the settings that you need with snapping are now located on this snapping toolbar. And you see we have the different types of snapping available here. We can turn off any type of snapping that we don't need, but all the snapping types are enabled by default, and also snapping is enabled by default. So as you've seen in the demo, we can also set the snapping tolerance. We do that here from the snapping menu, go to the options, and also have some different options for the snap tips. Another big improvement about snapping is that it's available now all across ArcMap. That means it's not limited anymore to just an edit session. For example, let's say we're georeferencing a raster or a CAD file. We can use any of the snapping parameters that we've set on the snapping toolbar. Or if you're measuring a distance with a measure tool, all the snapping parameters are available to you there as well. There are also a few efficiency enhancements that I'd like to point out before we go to the next software demonstration. First of all, there's an improved selection experience, especially when you select features that coincide with other selectable features. So when you select features to edit, you don't want to be hunting around the interface and manage your selection. What happens actually when you click on a feature, like this street feature that coincides with a park feature, a new mini toolbar shows up with just one tool on it. This tool is the selection chip. The selection chip allows you to toggle through this list of selectable features, these coinciding selectable features. So right now I have the street selected, but if I wanted to select the park, I would just click the selection chip here, or I could bring up the list of selectable features here and explicitly pick the park here to select it. So this makes it much easier to toggle through this stack of selectable features. You might be wondering, didn't I use the N key on my keyboard before to do that, to toggle through a list of selectable features? Yes, it's still available. The N key is still available, but the selection chip provides a much more graphical method to choosing which feature you want to select. Another big improvement of the editing functionality is multiple vertex editing. So what you can do now, you can select multiple vertices at the time and move them, for example, to a different location. Or you can delete multiple vertices at the time. We have this multiple vertex operation where you can do these edits with multiple vertices at once, which of course saves you a lot of time. Also, you can select a segment. Maybe you want to select a segment and move it. Or you can change a straight segment, for example, to a circular arc or a Bezier curve. This, again, makes it easier to digitize features more accurately or represent them more accurately. All I really need to do is right-click on the straight segment and replace it with a circular arc. I will show you that in this next software demonstration. So we're going back to ArcMap here, and you see we're switching scenarios. We're moving on to an urban scenario. We're in a city in the Midwestern United States here, and you see I have streets and parks in my table of contents. The scenario is that the data has been undergone some quality control, and quality control has turned up quite a few errors that I need to fix in my edit session. So I'm going to right-click on any of the layers, start editing here through Edit Features, start editing. Remember, this starts an edit session for all the layers in that workspace, and it also creates my feature templates. So you see right now here I have a feature template for my streets, but, well, my parks layer is turned off, so I can't see my parks feature templates. The parks feature template shows up as soon as I display the parks layer. But I'm going to turn that one off for now. And I also am going to hide the Create Features dialog and the table of contents because I want to get some more real estate here. So let's zoom to an area where I'm going to reshape some street features. I created a bookmark here, and this is going to take me to some streets that obviously don't match the aerial photo underneath. So especially this feature here needs quite a bit of work. You see the first part is okay, but the second part is obviously outside of the street casement. So I'm going to reshape this feature. I'm going to activate the Reshape Features tool from the Editor toolbar. And this time I'm going with all my default snapping environment. I don't change anything. What I'm going to do, I snap to the street endpoint here. And at this point, the Feature Construction toolbar shows up. You may or may not be able to see it, but I'm not going to use it anyway. Again, sorry if you don't see it. This is really due to the limitation of the streaming technology that we use here. It's showing up here in ArcMap. So I press Tab on the keyboard just to move the Feature Construction toolbar out of the way. And also on my keyboard, I press the space bar to temporarily disable my snapping. Because otherwise, it's very easy to accidentally snap to the existing feature here while I'm digitizing the new shape of the street. And the Feature Construction toolbar, it actually follows me as I'm digitizing the sketch here. To finish the sketch, I can double-click or press F2, or I could actually use the button from the Feature Construction toolbar. So you see right now I have reshaped this second part of the street. Reshaping is really good. It's a really efficient operation for major edits like this. But what if I just wanted to do some minor adjustments here. Let's take a look at this other street feature over on the northern part of the map. You see, again, we have to adjust it. It's outside the street casement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to enable vertex editing for some minor adjustments here. So I click vertex editing, and you see my edit vertices toolbar shows up. Also, notice in the sketch, the edit vertices appear. So what I'm going to do now is use my modify sketch vertices tool to draw a box right around a few of these vertices, and you see I selected them all at once. What I can do now, I drag any of them into the street casement, and actually I drag all of them at the same time. I move them all at the same time into my street casement. And then finish the sketch will actually create a new feature for me. So this operation, this multiple vertex operation, it's really efficient for adjusting some shapes, for doing some minor edits on your features. Now the last thing I want to show you in this area is how to change a segment. I have a different bookmark here, and I'm going to show you a street here. It's actually a curved street, but if I go to the edit sketch, if I display the vertices, you see it's being digitized with a lot of straight segments here. That's how we used to do it until a couple of years ago. We used to digitize curved features as a series of small straight segments. But what I can do now is I can replace these straight segments by a circular arc and represent the feature actually with a true curve. So what I'm going to do, I will activate the delete vertices tool, and first of all delete these three middle vertices here. You see, this will give me a straight segment. So right now I've represented the street just with a straight segment. And when I double click on it to get back into edit vertices mode, that's another way to get back. If I right click on my straight segment, I get the change segment menu option here, and you see I can change it to a circular arc or a Bezier curve. I'm not going to do the Bezier curve. I'm doing the circular arc, and you see if I adjust it, I now represented the feature with a true curve with a circular arc. All right, let's zoom to a different part of town where I'm going to split a street line feature, and also where I'm going to cut a polygon. So I have a different bookmark here. You see I'm zooming to a part of town where I have quite a few street center lines here. And you see, as a general rule, we try and split up center lines where they intersect with other streets, with other street center lines. Just this street here breaks the rule. You see, it's not broken up into separate features where it intersects with this other street. So I will have to cut it. I have to split it. And to do that, I use the split tool from the editor toolbar. All I really need to do is snap to the endpoint of the intersecting street. And if I click there, you see it splits the feature in two halves, in two pieces. Okay, so let's turn on the parks layer. I haven't worked with the parks layer yet, and you see I also have a park feature in this area. Also at this point, it's a good idea to switch over to the selection view in the table of contents. You see in the top here, we have different options to list the layers in the table of contents either by source, by visibility, or by the selection. And this gives me a good overview how many features from each feature layer are selected. And also you can set your layer selectability here. Okay, now watch what happens if I select this street feature here that runs through the park. This street feature coincides with a park polygon, and that's why the selection chip shows up. The selection chip gives me an easy visual option here to toggle through this stack of selectable features. I can also use the drop-down arrow here, and you see in this drop-down menu, I get this list of overlapping, coinciding features, and I can easily select the park feature. This is the one that I want to work on next. Quality control has turned up that this park has been divided into a northern and a southern half. And the street that runs through the park, that's our boundary line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this polygon by this existing street center line. To do that, I use the Cut Polygon tool here from the Editor toolbar. And with the Cut Polygon tool, I snap to the street intersection outside of the polygon here. Now I want to switch over to the Trace tool. And you see the Trace tool is also available here on the Editor toolbar. It's the one on top of the tool palette. So I activate the Trace tool, click again to activate my tracing, and now I can trace the existing street to cut my polygon. And in the end, I press F2 to finish the sketch. If we go back to the table of contents, you see now I have two parks features selected. And also in the attributes dialog here, this is where you see we have the northern part and the southern part. Okay, so to assign some attributes here to the northern part, let's call it North Marlet Park, and the southern part, that's South Marlet Park. We hope you enjoyed today's seminar. On behalf of Esri, I would like to thank you all for attending.